right, guys, and we are live with Extra Point with Phil Jones. Welcome back, everybody.
All right, guys, welcome in. Phil Jones with you. Extra Point, another week of talking high school football. Guys, thanks so much for being with us on this Monday. Flying solo today, except with you guys. So no LG, no Mark. So it's you and me. And as the old song says, we will disagree. And anyway, going to talk a lot of high school football today. You guys that are veterans of the show, you know the drill. By all means, let me know where you're checking in from, who your favorite team is. And for those of you that may be new to the show, I make the viewers and the listeners as much a part of the show as what I have planned for content. So you can be as much a part of the show or as little of the show. If you just want to sit back and observe and just kind of take it all in, that's fine too. But know that I'll try to get to every single comment. Now, sometimes I make it, sometimes I don't. But I'm going to bring up the comments here on my phone, and we'll get you guys in here and find out who all is in the house. Got a lot to talk about today. Obviously, we're inching closer and closer to the start of the Georgia high school football season, the 2025 season. One of the things we're going to talk about today, guys, is the I put together, and we should have it posted this week as part of our newsletter, but and Flynn will have it up on Instagram and all of our social media platforms. But the top 10 games to watch for, the games that I think the top 10 best matchups this year to look for. Now, it's kind of tough because, man, there's a lot of great games to look for this year, and I'm sure I left them out. Yeah, I'll say this. Instead of it being the 10 best, it's 10 games to watch for. I need to probably kind of redefine that, but we're going to talk about that. I'll let you know what my choices were. Interesting thing, I noticed that most of the really good games are going to come in the early part of the season. That's just the way it kind of played out as I was going through the whole schedule. And believe me, it really was an all-day thing yesterday. You can only imagine trying to go week by week, team by team, and try to find out, this matchup was pretty good. That one was pretty good. And that was a very tedious process. So I'm sure that there are some games that, we could have checked off and could have definitely qualified as one to watch. But I think you're going to like the ones that I've got for sure. Also, of course, we got to talk about it. I'm sure most of you have heard by now. A lot of you, of course, commented on our post. We were one of the first sites in the state to break the news of the awful shooting, the homicide in Carroll County that involved a Carroll County man and unfortunately involved two. I know there's two players. I think there's a juvenile involved as well. I do know, though, that there were two older young males who were identified because of their age. I'm assuming that's because they're 18 or over. And again, it's just sad all the way around. Now, you look at it from lives lost, that's number one. You look at it from lives derailed, careers derailed, football, was part of these young men lives. So we don't want to say that anything is more important than a human life. It's not. But, at the same time, you've also got the two lives of these young men who, while they are alive, their football careers, could be done. And these were two of the best football players on their teams, their respective teams. Of course, talking about Kamari Farmer and I'm trying to think of this other gentleman's name. Somebody help me out with that. It's a young man from Bowden. I had it written down, but I think I misplaced it. But you guys, again, I'm sure we've posted it. We had a post yesterday morning on Facebook that a lot of you liked and shared. And I don't know really a lot of details. I've had some people message me that said it was some really nasty stuff. So I'm going to try to find out some details. Of course, I'm definitely limited as to what I can say because I just don't know. I wasn't there, but awful, awful situation. And our thoughts and prayers go out, first of all, to the family of the deceased. And then, of course, our thoughts and prayers also go out to Kamari Farmer and that second young man who played for Bowden, who was involved with Joshua Davis, I believe was his name. That's right. Juancimo Villalobos helping me out with that. I appreciate that, brother. But nevertheless, terrible situation, and most of you woke up to that yesterday morning. And just think, man, you know, I was looking at Kamari Farmer. I was looking at his Facebook page, and he had just posted, I think, on Friday, a lot of the workouts that he was going through. And then who would have known, you know, 2 days later that he would be sitting in jail charged with murder. Unbelievable. Just unbelievable. And, you know, I hate to say this, guys, but it looks like we have about one of these every year, don't we? And we have these situations, you know, it's I don't think it's actually every year. It seems like it's happening way too often, I can tell you that. But that's a terrible situation. You know, your life changes in an instant. I'll say this and I'll move on. There was a friend of mine. He's a regular watcher of the show. I'm not going to name any names, and you know I always protect my sources. But a gentleman who he was friends with a young man who had transferred to Carrollton, I believe it was one of the schools over there. I think it was Carrollton. And I believe, as the story goes, I was told he was asked to go with these three young men, and he declined. And you want to talk about good decisions? Yeah, he made the right decision. They had invited him to go along to, quote unquote, take care of some business, and thankfully he did not go along. But you know, very chilling to hear that kind of story where, you know, that young man made the right decision, decided to stay away from trouble, and he is a free man, and he's alive, you know, today because of that. But anyway, terrible situation. All right, let's take a look, see who all's in the house. Yeah, some really good comments from you guys. I want to say hello to my buddy Waylon Pohl, checking in from St. Louis, Missouri. Jerry Harrison says every decision you make has consequences. They trashed all three of their lives and their families. You know, unfortunately, that's a good point. Kelly Mitchell is checking out the show. Kelly, checking in from Brooks County. What's up, my man? Stephen K. Wynn, our extended employee. Not really, but extended de facto employee of ITG Next. Stephen K. Wynn says, unfortunately, a sad situation on every level for the Carrollton and Bowden community. Yeah, that's another thing. You know, you got these coaches who now have got to deal with this. Of course, let's face it, when football teams get together, these coaches really become extended fathers. Yeah. Football team becomes a family. So it's going to be, I don't want to say interesting. It's just something to keep an eye on how this is going to affect Carrollton and Bowden. Because again, I don't want to make it out where football is more important than life. It's not. But as they say, the show must go on. You're talking about a defending state champion looking for their fourth straight state title. And you're talking about Carrollton, Joey King, of course, trying to do everything he can to finally win that first state title for Carrollton since he's been there. And so that is the reality as well, guys. It's not I know it's not life or death, but these coaches get paid a lot of money. And when something like this happens, it's up to the coaches to try to rally the troops and get everybody back in the right frame of mind. And, you know, that's one of the many fallouts of this whole thing, right? I mean, it's like this thing has got so many tentacles that you can point to. And again, I get it. Football, you may say, well, Phil, that's not very important, but it's a part of these players' lives. And for those two players, Farmer and Davis, you know, they were almost certain to be playing at the next level. David Woods checking in. How I feel. David Woods checking in from Grayson Ram Country. Coaching more than football. It's a tough job with these boys. That's right, David. Appreciate all you do, buddy. Luke Bush, my man, Luke Bush. He knows something about taking care of these boys. He does a lot for the Lowndes County High football team. Luke, me and Luke had a very friendly back and forth the other day over the weekend. It was pretty funny. I'll share with you about what it was. Nothing major. But Luke, thanks so much for checking out the show, my man. And I was just talking with your head coach, Adam Carter. And we're going to try to get over there maybe this week and talk to Coach Carter, find out what's happening with those Lowndes High Vikings. All right. Let's see who else is in the house today. Again, let me know if you're checking out the show. I mentioned Waylon Polk, Stephen K. Wynn, Kelly Fountain checking in from up in Rome. Kelly Fountain, passing along prayers for Carrollton. Absolutely. Zoe Hill, Big Chris was in the building. What's up, Zoe? I know you're ready for your Chris High Cougars. Guys, is it just me, or is there not a renewed sense of optimism across the state? All these teams, everybody's 0-0 right now. Your favorite team's going to win the region. Everybody, hey, we're going to win the state. Well, right now, everybody's on the same level. Now, reality may kick in once we get started, but right now, everybody's 0-0. Joshua Chase Garnto. Phil, what's up, bud? Viking Nation in the house. Absolutely, Josh. Thanks so much for checking out the show. Luke Nelson. Big Buford, as he is well known. Prayer is going up to all involved. Hey, Luke, look at what I got on, my man. Ooh, I'm going to turn myself off there. Luke, look at my shirt, man. You like that? That doesn't make you and the Buford fans happy. You make everybody else ticked off at me. My man, Tony Wolf, longtime athletic director for Buford, still in a very important capacity up there with the Wolves. See ya. He sent me this and a long sleeve shirt last year, part of a Buford care package. And man, I do appreciate it. So I thought you'd like that, my man. Luke Bush. Well, I'm going to tell you what Luke and I were talking about. Luke and I were talking about athletes and quarterbacks. You know, you got this category now where you categorize players. Of course, we've been doing this top 10. I've been doing this top 10 for quarterbacks, running backs, all the positions. I just got through doing the defense, and now I've switched over to the offense. But one of the categories I did was athletes, okay? And Luke and I got into a friendly discussion about Jace Johnson, the quarterback for the Lowndes High Vikings. Now, I've got Jace as a quarterback, and Luke was arguing that he's an athlete. Now, and again, it's splitting hairs here, and I don't really want to get too deep into it, but to me, an athlete, and I'd love to hear y'all take on this. So to me, an athlete, and the way we look at it here at ITG Next, an athlete is when you play multiple positions. Give an example. Prince Gene Valdosta. He can play quarterback, he can play running back, he can return kicks, and he does all that for Valdosta. That's the definition of an athlete. Jace is a quarterback, period. That's it. Now, not to say that he couldn't evolve into an athlete and return kicks and maybe play some defense. But anyway, that's kind of how to try to define the difference between a position player and an athlete. So that's kind of what Luke and I were having a friendly disagreement about. But nevertheless, Jim Blair checking in, Colquitt County Packers. What's up, Jim? Nancy Sullivan Burrell, Worth County. Johnny Holcomb, speaking of Prince Gene and the Cats. Johnny Holcomb. Johnny does a great job of heading up that Valdosta David Waller Museum over there. Johnny Holcomb is checking out the show. Adam Hips, I take it you agreed with me on that. Jim Blair says Milton going to go down. I got you, buddy. I'm trying to read that. Oh, Waylon, man, I'm sorry to hear about your loss, buddy. Hanging in there. Lost my stepmom a couple of weeks ago, and I need prayers. Waylon, prayers up for you, brother, for sure. Jerry Harrison. Jerry, I knew you were going to get your digs in about Monroe area. Jerry takes a chance. Does not miss an opportunity. Jerry says top 10 athlete has to be Dacian Davis at Monroe area. I hear you. Tayretta Mayretta, ladies and gentlemen, is in the house. What's up, Phil? Marietta football is on. Somebody give me what is the real deal on Marietta? Okay. You got the new head coach coming in, and my man Flint went up there and visited Marietta. And you've got our new coach up there. Gosh, well, I'm not good with names today. He was our guy from Edgewater, Cameron Duke. It's like when I say the school name, the real name clicks. Cameron Duke made a lot of headway down at Edgewater of Orlando. And that's who Marietta has turned to take over the Blue Devils. Now, Marietta's been one of those teams, proud history, proud heritage, won a state championship not too long ago. That was under Richard Morgan. And listen, I don't mean this with any disrespect at all. But I think in some cases, and this is the case with Richard Morgan and Marietta, sometimes the coach just loses his mojo. I'm not saying he loses his ability to coach. That's not what I mean. Richard Morgan is a fantastic coach, longtime coach of Marietta, but just something wasn't clicking there anymore. And maybe it was just a cycle of going through a certain caliber of players. But Marietta, they really have not been that competitive the last couple of years, with apologies to my buddy Roster Sutherland. But listen, it's a top flight program. There are these schools every year that should always be in the mix, I think. That's what I said about Thomasville about 5 years ago. I don't know how many of you remember that. But I was talking about back then, that it does this state good when you've got certain programs that are competitive. Marietta is one of those. Thomasville is one of those. Valdosta is one of those. I remember when Valdosta went through the years of what would be like 3-7 and 2-8, and that's just not good. It doesn't matter if you're a fan of those teams. Yeah, those are the programs, the blue bloods, that should always be competitive. I hope that makes sense to you guys. But anyway, all right. Ezra Harrison says, "What's up, Phil?" Harrison, quarterback at Monroe, checking in. What's happening, brother? What's going on? Larry Godwin, LG. LG, we miss you, man. I figured I'd give LG a week off. Athlete depends on the context. In terms of college recruiting, an athlete is recruited as a versatile player because college may use player in a position other than what Virgin. Jason's a great athlete, but he's a quarterback first. Yes. And that's kind of the way I looked at it. And that's what I was telling Luke. Thanks for chiming in, Larry. Appreciate you. Good to hear from you. All right, there is Marquez Cross, Collins Hill. Now, I'm going to take a stab in the dark, and I hope I'm not butchering your name, Marquez Cross. I'm assuming that you are a part of the Duda family, talking about McCrea Cross. And I hope I'm not butchering his name up either. Let me know about that. Donnie Jarvis, the audio is so much better. Thank you for listening to your listeners. Absolutely. You guys can see that we're in my abode today, instead of being on location, where we have been the last few weeks. We've either been at the Big Nixon, Valdosta, Mellow Mushroom. Well, we thought we'd bring it back here to the old homestead. And this is where I am doing the show from today. So I hope everything is looking well, and hope it's sounding well as well. So Donnie, thank you for that, buddy. Appreciate that. Stephen K. Wynn says Chauncey Magwood was an athlete his senior year at Lee County. He played quarterback, wide receiver, defensive back at different points of the season. So that's your athlete. And I think we've all made the point there for sure. Rosser Sutherland now was talking about Marietta, wanting to know what the lowdown is on Marietta. Well, here's the man along with Tayretta Marietta. I've got Rosser Sutherland. Those are our two big Marietta representatives. And Rosser says, Coach Duke has already changed the culture in a good way for this young team. This is the most optimistic I've been in a while. We should at least return to the playoffs this year on paper. And I hear you. And that's what I was talking about earlier. I think this is the most optimistic overall state of fans that I have seen in a long time. I mean, we're looking forward to the season. You got everybody that, you got all the state champions that are thinking about repeating, and again, I don't mean to get back on the negative click here, but, how is, what happened with Bowden? Now, how is that going to affect their run for a fourth consecutive state championship? Something unheard of, something that would already be tough to do without the added drama. But now it's going to get even tougher as they move forward. But of course, that's kind of been my theme of this off season. I've been saying that this is going to be the year of the repeat. And again, I wrote a story about that not long ago. You guys can check it out at ITG Next. Where I thought that Milton's got a great chance of repeating. North Oconee got a great chance. Bowden. Who am I missing here? Grayson, of course. Grayson. So, yeah, I think obviously there's a lot of optimism. And, of course, other than those teams that are hoping to repeat, Carver, Columbus, other than those teams that are hoping to repeat, though, you got a lot of teams that feel like that they can knock off the state champ. So, Matthew Fielder, what's up, brother? Checking out the show. I mentioned Luke Nelson crosses a darn good quarterback. Luke, I had to sweeten it up there. Family show, you know what I mean? Even though the dam is breaking, it's not that bad a word when you say it in the right context. I love it. Juancimo Villalobos, that is the name of the day, says, can't wait for the season to start. Tons of talent and competition in 5A. Look, I've been saying all along, 5A, I think is the toughest class from top to bottom. Region 2, and we had a little discussion. I think LG and I had a little bit of discussion about that last week. What is it, 6A or 5A? The toughest classification. I think overall, I think it's 5A. And I'm going to tell you why. And I don't have to really look any further than our Class 6A top 10, okay? Guys, I just did the Class 6A top 10. It was our final preseason top 10. Yours truly have been ranking all the teams so far this year. And when I got to 6A, I was doing the top 10. I think it was Thursday or Friday last week. Can't remember. But when I got to the, past team number 7, I was like, I mean, I really had to dig. I mean, I really had to, let me think here. And I like the top 10. I like what we've come up with. My point being that teams 1 through 6, 1 through 7, were pretty much, I think everybody would agree that those teams in any particular order would be the 7 best teams. And I don't mind, and I'll share it with you here in just a second. But the final 2 or 3 teams in my Class 6A top 10 it was almost like a pin the tail on the donkey kind of thing. And no disrespect, and again, you'll see it. I'll share it with you in a minute. No disrespect. Obviously, if we think enough of you to rank you in the top 10, there's a lot of respect with that. But there could have been, for those teams that came in at positions 8, 9, and 10, I could have gone with another dozen teams, maybe not that many, but you get my drift. All right. We'll go over the top 10 here in just a minute. Joshua Chase Garnto getting back in the conversation here. He says, Phil, here's a good question for you. With Jace Juice Johnson being the number 2 quarterback in the nation, how much pressure do you think is on Adam Carter and the Vikings to win region and compete for a state title? I know LG and I talked a little bit about this more than once. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think there's a lot of pressure at all. I don't. I think, this is Phil's opinion. I think the powers that be, of course, I guess you'd have to start with Danny Redshaw. He is the athletic director at Lowndes. And that's going to be the first line of defense, so to speak, for Coach Carter to get through. And maybe that's a bad choice of words, but you guys understand what I'm saying. Of course, you got to get, you got to please the board. You got to please the football guys. It's always been at Lowndes. But I think what I'm sensing is because Adam Carter has already come out and told me, he said, look, 2025 is going to could be a challenge for us. Now, that's not him waving the white flag. Okay, Chase, that's not what I'm saying. But I think there's an understanding, especially Chase. I'm sorry, Joshua, do you go by Joshua or Chase? I know we talked about that. Anyway, Joshua Chase. I'll just address both. Lowndes lost, I believe, all but one starter on the defense. I like their offensive line a lot. I like their offense a lot at Lowndes. And I don't think Lowndes is going to have any problem scoring points. I think it may be giving up points. So to answer your question, I know I'm taking the long way home on your question or the answer for it. I don't think there's that much pressure. I really don't. I think that Lowndes would like to win the region. I think that is the goal. Get into the playoffs. But man, it's look, and I'll tell you about speaking of the playoffs. Another thing I'm going to go over with you guys is I put together a potential playoff matchup. And in that, Lowndes has a really good chance, Joshua Chase, of playing Buford again. And we'll talk about that here in just a minute. One Simo Villalobos says, brother, you can send me questions all night. I'll hit you up. Gainesville ring sizing. Gainesville ring season. Their best team in terms of talent this year? Yes. I agree with that 100%. In my top 10 matchups to watch for this year, I think I said that in my comments, I said that this might be Coach Nibley's best team since he arrived. At least the best team the first year that he got there when he took the Red Elephants to the 2022 state championship. And they lost to Hughes. I think it's the best team since then. So, yes, one Simo Villalobos. I agree with you on that one, 100%. By the way, Joshua J. Scornto, I hope I answered your question. Austin A.B. Butler is in the house. Give it up for A.B. My man, Phil Jones himself. What you talking about, bro? You the man. We are close to kickoff to the 2024 season. Absolutely. Oscar Miles, my man from Carver, Columbus, is checking out the show. What's up, brother? Chris Cole finally made it in. Chris said, man, I ain't going to waste all this time in all season. I'm going to wait till we get close. What's up, Chris? Thanks so much for checking out the show, brother. Brooks County. By the way, I got Brooks County in my top 10 matchups, games that you must watch. Who do you think it was, Chris? Which Brooks County game do you think I've got as Brooks County being one of 10 statewide games not to miss? Which one do you think it was, Chris? Let me know, brother. Look who just walked in here. It's my buddy, my brother, longtime brother from another mother, Rusty Cravey, a.k.a. the Jink Dog. It's in the house. Rusty, what's up, my man? Rusty Cravey says, Phil Jones, let's talk about them Blue Devils. Absolutely. Hey, that's talking about optimism. That's a team. That's a community. That's a fan base. Tift County that is really rejuvenated from last year's good show. And you want to look at all of these saying, what do you mean last year? They won 2 games. I'm telling you, where Tift County was and where they had fallen to under Noel Dean, they are so much better. And yes, it was not measured last year in wins and losses. I get it. But man, they look so much better last year. I think they'll be improved. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Jeff Littleton is doing a great job. I'm hearing a lot of great things. Earl Brooks, his son Cam, plays for, of course, Thomas County Central. He is defensive end extraordinaire. He is committed to the University of California Golden Bears. And Earl went out to the Thomas County Central. I believe it was the OTAs that they had. Tift County was one of the teams. And Earl was talking about Tift County. In fact, Earl made one of the best overviews I have seen anywhere this year. He talked about each team, gave a good bit of detail. It was a pretty long, lengthy post, but I liked it. I liked it a lot. He's a great man, great family, salt to the earth people, and he knows his football. Obviously, he raised a good kid. He raised a great football player. Well, great kid and great football player. And there's some brothers and sisters, but anyway, but he talked about Tift County, and he said that Tift County has got some athletes. They look good. Now, one thing Earl said that kind of confused me. I think Earl said that they had some athletes, but the problem may be getting them to football. Now, I like Tift County's quarterback, and Earl, I don't know if they were using a different quarterback or not, but last year had a chance to see, is it Damian Davis? Is that his name? I may be off. Somebody help me out. Tift County quarterback's name. Saw him in that Colquitt County game last year. He led the Tift County offense, and I'm going to tell you, the kid was throwing the ball. Tift County got into this passing game that they were rocking and rolling. And I mean, he was throwing all kind of darts. Receivers were running great routes. That's why I became really optimistic on Tift County for this year. From what I saw last year, where they give Colquitt County all that they could handle last year up at Brody Field. I tell you, the one thing that's going to be interesting to watch it with Tift County is the fan base. They've got to get those fans back in the seats. And I think that's already mission accomplished. I think there's so much optimism up at Tift County. And Rusty, you can tell me what you're hearing up there. But I think there's so much optimism that right there, there's so much renewed interest, a feeling of optimism in that Tift County community and that Tift County Blue Devil fan base. That it's going to bring the fans back. And that's where you start. Get the fannies in the seats. Those kids will notice it. The kids will feed off of it. Look, I saw some Tift County games. Well, again, the Colquitt game last year. And I think the year before, maybe it was 2 years before, we did the Lee County, Tift County. The crowd was horrible. It was horrible. I mean, that big, huge home side, which, by the way, was overbuilt, but that's a different story. Which makes it look worse than it is. But you have that big old home side at Tift County. You guys have been to Tift County Stadium, about Brody Field. You know what I'm talking about. And, man, it's just it looks bad. It looks bad. But it has been full before, so they can do it again. Win, and they will come. All right. So, all right, let's see here. All right, first of all, I want to talk about some of these games you don't want to miss this year. And I'll get back to some of your comments in a minute, but I promise you guys that I would go over this. And again, so these are 10 matchups you don't want to miss this year. And this is yet to be published, but this is what you call a sneak peek. By tuning into the show, you get a sneak peek on our content coming up. I turned this in late last night about midnight. All right. So here are some games you don't want to miss. And I can tell you that it's loaded with early games. Now, I know probably what you're thinking. Well, you start looking at the schedule and you check this game off and that game off. And before you know it, I had 10 games. That was part of the deal I would get. But at the same time, these are games that just, they happen to be early in the season. And you know what? These are 10 games you don't want to miss. Maybe there's more. And I probably would have to go back and do like a part 2. I'm not going to deny that. Jim Blair says Tift County built that stadium under them Shiver boys. You're right about that. Todd Shiver, Stan Shiver, great day. I've never seen headhunters like those boys. Todd especially. No, Stan, free safety. Went to Florida State. There's a picture that Florida State has. It's up on a lot of fans' walls I've seen in Tift County fans of Florida State Seminoles, where Stan Shivers has just laid the wood to, I think it's a North Carolina State receiver. And Stan Shivers is standing there. He looks like a big, I don't know. You just got to see it to believe it. B was a big, more like a linebacker at free safety, but he had just leveled this receiver, and he's just standing there looking at him, standing over him. You've seen the pose. About one of the more intimidating poses I've ever seen, and it wasn't a pose, it was an actual action shot right after the hit. Anyway, but you're right, not to get too far off there. All right, Kelly Mitchell says Brooks at Pierce is a good one. I was mentioning that one of the Brooks County games I have mentioned as one to watch. It may surprise you. May surprise you. All right, number one on the list is, and this is a gimme. And by the way, I didn't realize this was a Thursday night game. It's Milton at Buford. Of course, going to open that brand new stadium. And guys, and I know most of you probably that are watching this, you probably have seen from one person or another the highlights, these, I don't know, we call them reels, of the Buford, the new stadium at Buford. They've been doing a lot of these at dark. They've, my buddy Luke Nelson, aka Big Buford, who's watching the show, told me that they tested out the big jumbotron and said it just make your chest rattle. And man, it's just so all this buildup. We've been talking about the anticipation of the season. So you've got a double whammy here. So you got this Milton Buford game, obviously two humongous programs, two programs that really should be the favorite to win the state title in their respective classifications. You got to remember, Milton's still 5A, Buford 6A. Buford going to go for the three-peat this year. So Milton would love nothing better than to come into the new Buford Stadium and wipe out the party. However, got to do it with no Luke Nickel. No Luke Nickel. In fact, you got a couple of teams who will be without longtime starting quarterbacks. We'll get more into that. But you got Milton and Buford. That's going to be on a Thursday night, by the way. ESPN's got it. So you got national television. You got Milton at Buford. You got all the storylines. Again, it's not a winner take all because it is a non-classification game. But man, listen, you don't want to lose this game, especially if you're Buford. I'm sorry. The last thing Buford wants to do is say they lost the first game in that brand new stadium. You don't want that. Odias TG says shake and bake. I don't know what that means. Jim Blair, 1983 state championship, 59-6 over LaGrange. I was there. That was the year Tift County ran the table, I think, winning the state title. Just, it was a blitzkrieg is what that was. Andrew Watkins, Daugherty versus Monroe, must watch this year. Jim Blair says Colquitt versus Lee County, must watch this year. Brooks at Pierce. Jim Blair, okay, wait, I've already called that one out. All right. Let me know if you're watching the show. Let me know for those of you that have not commented, please do so. I don't want to leave anybody out. I hate to do that. I hate to look at the show afterwards and see where I missed somebody. I do not like that. It's important to me that I acknowledge you guys. You took your time to check out the show and to do your part, and I'm trying to do my part and make sure I acknowledge you guys. So if I do overlook you guys, I do apologize. Greg Hammock says Peach County is ready. Jason Green, feel no word out of the Valdosta camp. I don't see how they win more than 6 games. Lowndes, Colquitt, and Camden will beat them. I'm really torn on Valdosta, and I'll get back to our top games in a minute. I'm the kind of guy, look, I think Valdosta has the athletes year in and year out to get it done. I've heard the defense in particular defensive line could be a problem. You don't have quarterback. Man, Todd Robinson, I don't think we can stress enough how much Todd Robinson meant to the Valdosta program last year. Guy was a spark plug. Guy could change the game on a dime. And you don't have that this year. In fact, I don't even know if they decided on quarterback. So I got to tell you, I'm hearing some good things about Valdosta. So some from other people I'm not. And usually to a man, most people agree that Valdosta is a contender for the region. And I'm just not hearing that this year. All right. We'll get back to Valdosta and some other teams in a minute. I'm going to tell you about Lowndes, what I think about them. All right. Benedictine at Colquitt comes in at number 2. These are the 10 must-see games. You do not want to miss these games if you're a fan, or, even if you can catch the game somehow. You don't want to miss it. Benedictine at Colquitt County, season opener. It'll be the first time these teams have played each other, ever. Now, you had Benedictine come to Moultrie. It was not the Hog Pen. I think it was like in the 30s or something. I don't know. But let's face it. That was the Moultrie Packers. This will be the first time that Benedictine and Colquitt County will have played each other. And I got to tell you, I can't think of many games bigger than this one. Benedictine's got a heck of a start to their season. It's going to be brutal. Benedictine, Colquitt County, cadets making their first trip. I really am big on Benedictine this year, guys. Guys, I just don't know about Colquitt. I don't know. I don't know. Man, they lost a lot. Now, I'm going to tell you, they lost Ryan Fitzgerald. They lost their entire kicking game. By that, I mean their snapper, long snapper, holder, kicker. That's important. When you're talking about a young man, think about this. For the last 4 years, and before that, it was Ryan's brother. Was it Brett? Think about this. For the last roughly 8 years, Colquitt County could depend when they got inside the opponent's 40-yard line. They were going to come away with points. Think about that. Now, so if you're starting at your own 20, you got 40 yards you got to get. 40. Now, you want to get more. I get it. But if you get 40 yards roughly, if you're starting at your own 20, you're guaranteed points. That's important. And I don't even know who Colquitt's kicker is this year. Young man, whoever you are. No slight to whoever you are and whoever the kicker is. And, but again, you got that whole unit that's gone. I think that's going to be big. You got a sophomore quarterback in Corin Lawson who's going to come back. He was injured a little bit last year, but he'll be back. Of course, Jay Lamar, you got one of the best running backs in the state. I get it. But, man, Benedictine is loaded. Stephen Cannon back. Bubba Frazier. You got the young man who came from Savannah Christian, 5-star. Look out. All right. So, Benedictine Colquitt, number 2 on the list. Number 3, Grayson at Collins Hill. What a game that's going to be. Remember, Grayson got upset by Collins Hill. Grayson led 19-3 for most of that game. Collins Hill come roaring back. Late 2-point conversion by Duda Macri Cross. Somebody help me out with how to pronounce it. I've butchered his name last couple of years. Great young man, great quarterback. He got the 2-point conversion for Collins Hill last year. My buddy Drew Swick going to be hosting the defending state champions. What a ball game that's going to be. We might be there. ITG next. We'll let you know. But Grayson Collins Hill to open the season. That's number 3 on my matchup of games to not miss. Chime in. Let me know what you think about these games, guys. James Andrew says Lowndes kicker is special teams is solid. Who is it, James? Do tell. All right. Give me say your name. Odious. Odious says TG. I don't know, man. I'm going to call you TG. Says, I just saw Valdosta and OTAs a couple of weeks back. Defensive line looks solid, nasty bunch. See, that's what I'm saying. Depending on who you talk to. Man, they look really good. Man, they're not worth it. Not going to be worth it. All right, so I don't know. Who knows? Luke Bush, Lowndes host Colquitt County. Don't miss this one. My man Luke Bush is going to rank. He's going to rank every Lowndes game as the one not to miss. Hey, that man is Lowndes Viking through and through, and I love it. Ain't nobody giving more heart and soul to that program than Luke Bush is. And I hear you, brother. Super fan. You really are to be commended. See, and I mean that with all seriousness, my man. You're a good dude. All right. All right. So I had Grayson Collins Hill. Number 4. These are games not to miss. These are my 10 must-watch games. Here's 2 teams I've already mentioned, and there's we may be at this one. Don't know yet. Buford at Benedictine. You see, I like to do the Benedictine. There's Buford at Benedictine. Week 2. Remember last year, Buford loses that opener to Milton. And then they're down to Benedictine. They're staring 0-2 squarely in the face. And lo and behold, a lot of things had to happen, and they did. And Buford able to come back. I believe they got a late 2-point conversion. They win. And even their record up does Buford. And boy, they went on the roll after that. Benedictine, well, that was tough. Tough loss. So, Benedictine, it's going to be over in Savannah, by the way. We made our first trip to Savannah last year, ITG Next Game of the Week. We went over there and covered the Benedictine Perry game. Perry went in there and won that game. Now, big, and this is no, look, I'm not dissing on Perry and Coach Kevin Smith. I love the guy. I love that program. But Benedictine was without Stephen Cannon last year, and he is a big part of that program. I tell you, I like Benedictine a lot, guys, a lot. You got the LaDamian Guyton. That's what I was trying to remember earlier. 5-star defensive lineman. He's a difference maker. When you start getting that 5th star by your name, yeah, you're talking about you're making a difference in football games. Bubba Frazier, 4-star. Stephen Cannon, whatever, 3-4-star quarterback. He's committed to Texas State. Bubba Frazier actually is a running back, but he led the team. I'm sorry, he's a wide receiver, but he led the team in rushing last year. That's just kind of athlete. Now, there's your athlete, Bubba Frazier. Anyway, I like Benedictine a lot. They're going to be taking on Buford, hosting Buford. That's going to be on 8/22. That's week 2. I told you this was full of early games. All right, we're halfway through here. Number 5. Must-see TV. Must-see high school football. Thompson at Grayson. This is a battle of Alabama and Georgia's largest classifications state champions. Okay. Now, last year, Grayson won this game by 1 point. It was an overtime win. I remember this game. Remember, Grayson had lost the week before to Collins Hill by a point, 2019, right? The next week, Grayson has to go to Thompson, Alabama. Remember, that's Mark Freeman, the head coach at Thompson. And remember, that's where the young man who, as an 8th grader, Trent Seaborn, remember that? Remember that story? Trent Seaborn came off the bench as an 8th grader and led Thompson to a state championship. Okay, fast forward now, a couple of years. Yet Trent Seaborn, before last year, young man turned down a 6-figure NIL deal. Now, the catch, he had to move to Georgia. Because remember, some of you may not know, Alabama does not allow NIL at high school level. It's a big no-no. But he decided, say, I want to win a championship. The money will come. How about that for some integrity? You don't think you want that young man quarterback in your football team? Yeah, Trent Seaborn. So Trent Seaborn, the quarterback at Thompson, he will be a junior, I believe. Anyway, last year, Grayson, it's kind of like Buford a while ago, right? Grayson was staring at an 0-2 start. They had lost to Collins Hill. Then in the Thompson game, okay, Thompson scores the go-ahead touchdown in overtime to go up 14-7. So here's Grayson. They've got one last chance. They've got to score. They do. They score a touchdown, 14-13. Santavius Bryant says, we're not going to kick the extra point. Let's go for two. We're going for it all, man. He pushed all his chips to the middle of the table. And they get it done. 2-point conversion. Grayson wins, and they never look back. En route to the state championship, they never lost again. Man, isn't that great? So those two teams will get back together this time at Grayson. What is that? Logan? No, not Loganville. I don't know. Somebody help me out with that. All right. So that's you can't miss game. All right. Number 6, Langston Hughes at Douglas County. The more and more I see and look and hear about Douglas County, the more impressed I am. Langston Hughes, I'm still iffy, but you got to give it to Hughes. They've had such a great program, always in the mix. They, of course, made it to the state title game last year. They lose to Milton, but they lost a lot. They lost a lot. But they got Darnell Kelly, he quarterback from transferred from Peachtree Ridge. He'll be their quarterback this year. And, of course, he's got one of the best running backs in what's his name? Somebody help me out. Somebody help me out. Who's the running back at Hughes? Carson Baker. Thank you. Can't read my own notes. But Douglas County may have the best receiver duo. I mean, you almost have to say they do. Devin Carter, Aaron Gregory. You got Zamarcus Lindley, 4-star running back. Now, here's something. DJ Bordeaux. How many of you know this? He was the Douglas County quarterback. He leaves. It was very quiet. DJ Bordeaux had been the starting quarterback, standout young man and player. He was the quarterback, all-everything quarterback for Douglas County. Well, he had originally came to Atlanta from Denver, Colorado, the suburbs of Denver. This offseason, for whatever reason, he and his family moved back. So that's got Douglas County and head coach Johnny White scrambling for a new quarterback. So they bring in, they actually got the service now of Mike Johnson. That name sounds familiar. He was a solid quarterback at Dutchtown who transferred in. So it'll be Johnson taking over quarterback duties for the departed Bordeaux. So that's going to be a good one. Okay, here's the game I was talking about, Brooks County. And I'll give you guys one last chance. There's one Brooks County game that I had as a must-watch, can't-miss game. Brooks County, who do you think it is? I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to give me some choices here. Who is my can't-miss game that's on the Brooks County schedule? What do you think? Jose Badilla is checking in. Hey, better late than never, right? I'm just kidding with you, Jose. Thanks so much for checking out the show, buddy. I'm glad you're in here. Very glad. Let me take just a second to see who all is in the house. Dave Pollard. Dave says he won the state championship as an 8th grader, too, at Thompson. I thought I mentioned that. Did I not? Trent Seaborn. That's going to be the next name you guys hear. What integrity. Young man had a 6-figure NIL deal waiting on him. All you got to do is transfer to Georgia. He said, nope, I want a state championship coach. Mark Freeman is the coach at Thompson. He's the quarterback whisperer. I got a chance to talk to Coach Freeman. Great man. He's the coach that built up the you guys help me out. The quarterback to Alabama. Who were the quarterbacks? The Hawaiian quarterbacks. Miami went on to Miami Dolphins. Help me out, guys. Y'all know who I'm talking about. He's the one that built those family of quarterbacks up, though. Mark Freeman. That's another reason why Trent Seaborn did not leave Thompson, because that's what Mark Freeman's specialty is. I wonder how many fathers have taken their sons to Thompson High School in Alabama and enrolled them just so they could work under Mark Freeman. Who are the quarterbacks I'm trying to think of, guys, that played for Alabama? One transferred to Maryland. What's the name? Come on, it'll come to somebody out there knows. You guys are holding out on Tua. Thank you, Stephen Wynn. everybody answers at one time. Stephen K. Wynn, Greg Maddox, Jose Padilla. Thank you, guys. Tua Tagovailoa. Mark Freeman is the guy. Mr. Tagovailoa found out about Mark Freeman, came from the West Coast. I think the story goes their path went from Hawaii to California to Thompson, Alabama. How about that? And that's where the Tua Tagovailoa, that's where Tua Tagovailoa and his brother wound up, because Mr. Tagovailoa had heard about Mark Freeman and said, I want my young men, my sons, to be developed by him. And that's what he's been able to do with Trent Seaborn. But as you can tell, Mark Freeman is more about wins and losses. A man of faith. By the way, Mark Freeman is the guy who was a finalist, I can tell you, I think for the Valdosta job. I believe that was when Rush was hired. I know Mark Freeman has been a finalist for several of the South Georgia jobs. By the way, just thought I would throw that out there. There you go, Stephen K. Wynn. See, this is why, listen, when I have a question, I go to Stephen K. Wynn, because he can always help me. Stephen K. Wynn says, you're right, Colorado to Thompson, Alabama. That's right. Okay. So, anyway, now we're back at it. The game that I mentioned with Brooks County, a must-watch game, is Worth County at Brooks. Now, some of you may, well, yeah, listen, guys. Worth County, you got to give Coach Jeff Hammonds credit, what he's been able to do there. He's got Worth County in the mix. He's got Lyndon Worthy. Now, how about that for a play on names? I'm Lyndon Worthy. I'm the quarterback at Worth County. And I'm going to tell you that this young man is going to be one to watch. I think he's just a sophomore. Looks great getting off the bus. 6'3", like 205. I mean, you want to talk about a ball player. Well, Coach Hammonds, I think they're going to have a really good year this year. He's going to take the Rams into Quitman to take on Josh McFather and Brooks. By the way, inquiring minds want to know what's going on in Brooks. So you had Junior Burris. He's the quarterback, led them to a state championship game last year. They didn't win it. They lose to the powerful Bowden Red Devils. But you got Junior Burris, quarterback in Brooks. This offseason, you had Bryce Puckett transferred into Brooks from Cairo. Now, a lot of people were thinking, what's going to happen to Junior Burris? And I think at first, everything was pretty cool. Well, I'm hearing rumblings. I could probably talk to Coach Josh McFather. He would tell me he's a great dude. He and I are friends. But that'd be too easy. So what are you guys hearing? You Brooks County guys, what are you hearing about Junior Burris? Is he going to be the quarterback? I'm hearing rumors that Brooks County's coaching staff is looking at moving Junior Burris to wide receiver and putting Bryce Puckett in at quarterback. Any truth to that? Look, got to be honest with you. If it works, it works. I don't know, but that's what I'm hearing. You had a similar situation, by the way, at Camden. You had the young man at Camden, Parks Rendell, who was the starter for the last 3 years, I believe it was. Parks Rendell. He led Camden to all these great years, these past couple of years. Well, this off season, he got bumped, I believe, to wide receiver defensive backs to make way for, I think it's Will Alexander. I may be wrong. For some reason, anyway, it's a quarterback transferred in from Florida. So I think overall that might make Camden better, because apparently from what I've been talking to Parks' dad, and look, Parks is good with the move. The move may make Camden better. I don't know. But I'm hearing that same scenario is playing out at over at Brooks. Any truth to it? Inquiring minds want to know. Let me know if there's anything to that. If you've got Bryce Puckett that's going to take over at quarterback and going to move Junior Burris to wide receiver. Man, can you imagine having Junior Burris, the athlete that he is? And I'm just going to say having George Lamons over on the other side. I got to tell you something. I saw Junior Burris last year. I think we did 2 of their games. We did Brooks County Fitzgerald. These were the ITG Next games of the week last year. We did that Brooks County Cook game early, and then we did Brooks County Fitzgerald later. Junior Burris has got one of the best arms I've ever seen. Strong arm. Now, he was very impressive at quarterback. And look, stats speak for themselves. He led Brooks County to a state title game last year. Didn't win it, but so I don't know. Don't know if there's anything to it. What are you guys hearing about that? Any truth to the rumor at Brooks County of Junior Burris being moved to wide receiver to make room for Bryce Puckett, who came in from Cairo? All right, here's Jose Padilla with a little random comment. Jose, what's up, brother? Jose, random here, but I met Gus Malzahn the other day. He was in downtown Thomasville. You know me. I questioned him and told him, don't be getting pretty with his play call this year at FSU. I'm sure you did, buddy. I got you. That's pretty funny, though. Justin King says, I think that will work out better. So, Justin, in truth to that, though, talking about that rumor there at Brooks, what's the deal? Inquiring minds want to know. We want to know the truth. Kelly Mitchell, where are you at on this? All right. Anyway, Worth County, Brooks County, I think this is one of the 10 must-see games. All right, let's move on. By the way, that Brooks County Thomasville game to open the season could have easily made my list. Well, that's one to watch. Thomasville is going to be loaded for bear. Can't wait to watch that Thomasville, Thomas County Central game. You know, we have done that game, I think, the last 2 or 3 years. It's been part of our ITG Next Georgia Game of the Week package. Might do it again this year. But I'm going to tell you, whereas the last couple of games have been decidedly Thomas County Central's favor, this might be more of a competitive game this year. You got to remember now, Thomasville is a Class A team. Thomas County Central is a Class 5A team. Probably could be a 6A team. But I'm just saying, you got to keep that in mind when we're talking about, yes, a crosstown rival, but one school's way bigger than the other. So you just got to remember that, guys. Got to keep it in focus. Claudia Noel Main is checking out the show. What's up, Claudia? All right, Matthew Park is asking, why did the move so late from Cairo to Brooks? That was a bona fide family move. I remember Bryce Puckett's dad had posted on Facebook when that first happened. He said, guys, I'm just going to, there's so much crap being thrown around out here. He explained that they have a daughter. I guess that would be Bryce Puckett's sister, who is going to Valdosta State University. And instead of having her drive, I guess back and forth, or the fact, I think she may have lived on campus. I don't know. I think the family, they wanted to make that whole move easier, closer, wanted her to be closer. So instead of the family being in Cairo and her being in Valdosta State, they decided to shorten it up a little bit. I don't think there was any shenanigans there. I just think it was it was truly a bona fide family move for all the right reasons, too. Okay. Games to watch, must-watch games. Carrollton at Gainesville. That's one to watch this year. Guys, think about this now. We were talking about pressure earlier. You think there's any more pressure on Joey King? And look, the situation involving Kamari Farmer notwithstanding, just toss that out a second. I know you can't ignore it, but Joey King is making a lot of money. A lot. Now, he's the highest paid coach in Georgia, and it's not even close. I mean, he's upwards of what, 224, something like that, 224,000 a year. Big bucks. And look, I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it. That's not my point. But I was in the newspaper business for 19 years. I was in senior management up in Forsyth County. And I was saying, the higher you go, the thinner the air gets. Meaning the more your responsibilities are, the more you make, the tougher it is to breathe, man. It gets tight. So look, people may say, well, there's no problem with Joey King. He's a great coach, done a good job. But man, that whole Carrollton deal, even when Sean Calhoun was there, you guys know how I feel about Sean Calhoun. Great man, great coach. But that state title has been very elusive for Carrollton. And now you had Joey King brought in there. And this is, look, I like Sean Calhoun. I think he got a little bit of a raw deal when they let him go from Calhoun. From Carrollton. Because the knock on him was can't win the state championship. Well, you got Joey King, who is making big bucks. They're paying him a mint. And really has not had any better luck than Sean Calhoun had. Now, he's had success. I think he's led them to 2 championship games. Sean Calhoun had led Carrollton to 5 straight quarterfinals, at least. Got them as far as the quarterfinal. So here's a situation where you got 2 really good coaches. They've both done a good job, but that state title game for there has been elusive. Now, I say that because you got Carrollton and Gainesville. It's one of my must-watch games this year. That's going to be in Gainesville, and I don't think the pressure is on Niblett, Coach Josh Niblett. But I will say that combined, there's 2 coaches there that they're both well compensated. There's a lot of expectations. You got to remember, before Niblett came to Gainesville, they had kind of been a wayward team. I mean, they were okay, but they were nothing like, where they are now. You got to go back to, who was the standout quarterback there? I'll tell you, I'm not good with names today. I'm never good with names. What am I talking about? The quarterback who was there in Gainesville, went on to play for the Cleveland Browns. Anyway. When he was there, I think that was the last time they won a state championship. But Gainesville has kind of been down. And then Niblett came in and, man, has just completely revitalized that program. They've got one of the most beautiful stadiums now. But I remember Gainesville when Niblett was there the first year, he led them to a state championship game, but they failed. They fell a bit short. That was 22. So Carrollton at Gainesville, you got two coaches here. Where you want to talk about pressure? Yeah, I think there's some pressure with these guys, for sure. All right. By the way, that's going to be on September the 12th. North Oconee at Jefferson. I was kind of shocked this game wasn't any more closer than it was last year. North Oconee is just absolutely loaded. They didn't lose anybody from their 15-0 team last year. I mean, if there's a sure thing, it's going to be North Oconee, I think. Now, let me say this. I want you guys to hear me on this, okay? By the way, we'll go to probably around 7 o'clock tonight. So, Deshaun Watson, thank you, Greg Maddox, and Stephen K. Wynn. I always count on you guys to bail me out. So, North Oconee at Jefferson. Now, I put this game in there because it is a great rivalry game. That is, it's going a lot off the names of the schools, the programs. But I will say this. Last year, I think North Oconee beat them like 35-0 or something. It was bad. I wouldn't be surprised. And if I had one game to take out, it might be this one. I did not rank Jefferson in the top 10. And I caught some slack for it. But you know what? These teams, certain teams, these programs have their year of rebuilding. Sort of their that I don't know, reset year. That's what I'm trying to say. Reset. And I think it's going to be that year for Jefferson. I really do. Now, they may prove me wrong. I think they got a fairly easy schedule. So they'll win a lot of games, but I just don't know. They lost so many players. Jefferson did. I mean, you got Sam Brown, who is that? No, that's right. That's his name. Max Brown. Sorry, Sammy Brown's brother. Great player, but I just am not sold on this year's Jefferson team. Could be wrong. All right. Lee County at Thomas County Central. That's number 10 of 10 games not to miss this year. Lee County at Thomas County Central, guys, that thing last year had so much build-up anticipation. Remember, that was the game they had to move to Saturday afternoon. It was a matinee affair. Hot Saturday midday game. Lee County hosting Thomas County Central. That was the game, if I'm not mistaken. Let me look at my notes. That was the game that Lee County snapped Thomas County Central's 25-game winning streak. Think about that. Thomas County Central had not lost in 25 games until that day. So Lee County snapped Thomas County Central's 25-game winning streak, and they went on to win that game 35-23. Remember, that game was delayed by Hurricane Helene. I mean, man, that, and I was not there, but I saw the highlights. I saw all the pomp and circumstance that went with that game. Unbelievable. So, having said that, you don't think Thomas County Central, Justin Rogers, and the staff, the players, you don't think they've got that game circled as one to watch themselves? Yeah. If Justin Rogers and Thomas County Central won any game, it's that one. I promise you. So that is the 10 must-see games. All right. Now, I also came up with a, and you guys can see all this coming up on our in our newsletter. Bear with me here. I came up with playoff matchups. So I took a look at the playoff matchups, if I can find it here. I'll find it in a minute. So I went and looked at the brackets. Remember the brackets came out last week, and I know it's something we always look forward to. And I looked at the brackets, and you can pretty much kind of tell, okay, so this region's playing this region, 1 versus 4. You guys know the drill. You can pretty much figure out who's going to be playing who. Well, I kind of got fancy with it, and I went through and I plucked out, okay, so if these two teams win and advance to the second round, they'll play each other, and and those are going to be some pretty good games. But then I took it a step further, and I went on out to the quarterfinals, I think the semifinals, and there's some pretty good games as far as the playoff matchups. Potential. Big word there I want to put in. Potential playoff matchups. And I'll go ahead and tell you while I look for it. One of the matchups, and Lowndes fans, I don't know how you feel about this, but there is a very good chance, Lowndes, that you could be looking at another trip to Buford. And you know what? Hey, if you want to prove yourself, if you want to prove that you're the team, who is it that I think LG says to if you want to be the man, you got to beat the man. I think LG says that. But this is one of those deals, guys. This is one of those deals. This is where, at some point, and we've talked about who's the best chance for Lowndes or a South Georgia team beating a North Georgia team? Who's going to give us being people that live in South Georgia, fans of Southern Georgia teams, who's going to what's going to give us the best chance to win a state championship? So my point being, look, if you want to be considered one of the top teams in the state, not just your region, you need to come up and beat one of these teams, and this is it. This is it. So again, you've got these playoff matchups. By the way, while I'm scrolling here, I will tell you a couple other things that to be looking for. So I came out with our Part 2 top 10 stadiums. Now remember, it's Part 2. We released this last week. My man Flint put it out on Instagram, and people just had a fit. They didn't look at the fine print. Oh, it's Part 2. So people that I guess didn't see the first list, saw this list and thought, what are you doing? You left off my team. Well, again, it's Part 2. So chances are, if you did not see your team on the Part 2 of the top 10 stadiums, you will see them. But go back and look at Part 1. And it had been a long time, that we did. I did that first list of top 10 stadiums back in February. So there's a lot of these top 10s that we put in the pipeline. We're doing top 10s of everything you can think of. I did the top 10 tailgate foods, by the way. Gotta love that. You guys that'll be coming up. I think you can already check it out on Instagram. The top tailgate foods. You may be surprised what was number 1. And by the way, I want to thank the folks from Lowndes, Ronnie Sauls, Jimmy Lindsay, Owen Prince. Those are some of the tailgate extraordinaires. Earl Brooks, Luke Nelson, and Kenny Perlott up at Buford helped me out. These are the folks that do a lot of tailgating. Gosh, I hope I'm not leaving it. Oh, of course, my guys at Coffee County. Rodney John, Stephen Tate. But I got a lot of help on that, and I do appreciate everybody's help. All right. I'm trying to find the playoff matchups. Here we go. All right, guys. We'll probably close with this, maybe. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. All right. So looking at the brackets, I came up with how I thought that the playoffs may look. I mean, you look at like region, I think it was the 1 versus 8. All right. So I took like region 1 6A and 8 6A. They're going to play each other. Okay. And you kind of get an idea of who the number 1 team is. Matthew Park. Phil, come to Middle Georgia. We'll take care of you on the tailgating. Brother, consider it done. I'm there, man. By the way, Jim Blair tells us new Buc-ee's in Brunswick. Yeah, we went over to do the Benedictine Perry game last year. We passed it on 95, and they were getting pretty far along there. So congratulations to Brunswick getting their own Buc-ee's. Alan Lott says, "Go Vikings." What's up, my man? Dave Pollard says Bowden versus Brooks in the semifinals is a possibility. Yeah, true. All right, here we go. So I went through the brackets. I spent like, I don't know, it was a long time like the one day last week. And here we go. These are some potential playoff matchups, guys. Okay. Now, in Class 6A, one of the more notable first round playoff matchups is Valdosta and Mill Creek. If Valdosta finishes as the number 2 seed, yeah, guys, a lot of ifs. Okay. Just having fun with it. So don't let anybody get carried away. If Valdosta finishes as the number 2 seed and Mill Creek finishes as the 3 seed, they could meet at Bazemore Hyder Stadium in one of the top heavyweight battles of the first round. I don't know that those two teams have ever played each other, have they? That's what I love about the playoffs. That's what I love about some of these matchups. Some of these big-time names. I mean, come on. Valdosta and Mill Creek. Now, you're talking about the best of the old versus the best of the new. You got the historical Valdosta program taking on the fairly new Mill Creek program. But that's one particular first-round playoff matchup in 6A. Here's another one. Lowndes, I mentioned this earlier. Lowndes at Buford. So the Vikings have been waiting a full year to get another chance at Buford. If Lowndes fights their way into the playoffs out of the wide open Region 1, which they should, they could be looking at a trip back to Gloryland with Jace Johnson and the fun and gun offense, I'm going to call it. And I tell you, that Lowndes offense should put up a lot of points this year. And then, of course, you got Dayton and Riolo coming back for Buford to quarterback the Wolves. By the way, no offense, but Buford sent me the old Buford swag. Oh, they got the Nike logo and everything. I love it. My man Tony Wolf from Buford, longtime athletic director, sent me this in a green long sleeve pullover. Appreciate you, Tony Wolf. The Buford Wolves. I never have really thought about that. Tony Wolf, Buford Wolves. All right. Round 2, another potential playoffs. We're in 6A. You could have, check this out. We've been talking about Collins Hill Grayson. There's a possibility we may be there for that game. Still working on our ITG Next Georgia Game of the Week schedule. So nothing's confirmed. So don't get anybody get crazy. However, one of the games we're looking at, season opener between Collins Hill Grayson. We talked about it last year. Grayson upset at the hands of Collins Hill. Collins Hill, boy, they had a great season last year. Grayson would get the payback in the quarterfinals of the playoffs last year. Okay. On their way to a state championship game or state championship. So this year, they're going to play again in the season opener. It's going to be at Grayson. Now, there is a good chance that these two teams could meet once again come playoff time in round 2. And in this one, basically, if things go like they could, like they should, like I think they will, I think we're going to see Collins Hill Grayson facing each other once again in the playoffs. This is Grace. Now, this is Collins Hill's chance to get again. See, this is what I'm talking about. These are your opportunities, just like Lowndes Buford. I think they got a really solid chance, Lowndes does, of going back to Buford. Hey, go there and win the game, man. Win the game. Just get it done. Lowndes fans don't need to be, hanging their heads. Oh my gosh, we're looking at the brackets. We got to go to Buford again. Well, you know what? No, you should be saying, I've been looking at the brackets, and we're going to Buford again. Be thankful for it. Be glad for it. That's where you got to look at it. Jim Blair says South Georgia got to be at North Georgia and all around. Yeah, true. Very true. All right. We're talking about these potential playoff matchups. Boy, you don't think there's going to be some talent, by the way, at Collins Hill Grayson? Good grief. Okay. Check this out, guys. Class 5A. Second round potential matchup. I've got Lee County going to Rome. According to Dean Fabrizio, the two teams have never played each other. How about that? Lee County at Rome. So Lee County and Rome, if they finish as either the one of the two seed in their respective regions, and then if they win their first round matchups, which they should, right? The two state powerhouses from Leesburg and Rome, Lee County and Rome, could be facing each other. There's a very good possibility, guys, that Lee County and Rome are going to be facing each other in the second round of the Class 5A playoffs at Barron Stadium in Rome. Can you imagine that? And by the way, if you're John Reed and Rome, you've had the you've had to take on class or South Georgia teams, Thomas County Central 2 years in a row in the playoffs. So you've had to face the possibility, the reality of Thomas County Central coming to Barron Stadium for 2 years in a row, and the results were the same. And now, John Reed's got to be saying, what have I got to do here? Now, for a third year in a row, you're looking at, Lee County now, another team out of the region, going to be making their way to Barron Stadium in Rome to take on the Rome Wolves. Guys, I got to tell you, that is a game to watch, isn't it? All right. A potential second round game in Class 5A. We're going to stay in Class 5A. Potential second round playoff game could pit Coffee against Hughes. Wow. How about that? Okay, remember those two teams met in the semifinals last year? Hughes won the game, advanced to the state championship against Milton. Their rematch, Coffee and Hughes, could come a little earlier this year if all the planets and stars line up. Here's a good one for you. Again, we're going to stay in Class 5A. And guys, by the way, these are very, very real possibilities. This is not some stretch. Okay, this is looking at the brackets, and if the higher seeded teams, the teams that should win, do win. This is kind of where I'm getting these from. So I just want you to know that this is not pie in the sky stuff. All right. How about Gainesville at Brunswick? Potential second round Class 5A playoff game. All right. Class 4A. Ware County at North Oconee could happen in the first round. Let's say Ware County goes on the road as the number 4 seed from Region 4A. They would be taking on the defending state champion, North Oconee Titans, who would be the number 1 seed in their particular region. Wow. Can you imagine that? Ware County, solid team, vying for a state title, it seems like every year. Having to travel up to North Oconee in one of the more attractive first round matchups. Second round matchup, Cambridge at Central of Carrollton. Here's the problem with Central of Carrollton. You're in the shadow of the Carrollton Trojans. And look, Central Carrollton has got, I think I rated him the top running back. Of course, I'm talking about Jonas Walton. He's the Notre Dame commit. Then you got J.R. Harris. I've been high on J.R. Harris forever. Heck of a duo there in that offensive backfield for Central Carrollton. Again, they're kind of lost in the shadow of Big Brother School, Carrollton, but they can hold their own. This will be a good one. Cambridge, by the way. Tyler Jones, the head coach there. Cambridge is one of those teams I've got. They're one of my 5 dark horse teams to watch this year. Nobody gives them respect. By the way, they're in Milton. How would you like that? Have to play in Milton with they're right there with the Milton Eagles. But Coach Jones has done his thing as the head coach there at Cambridge, the Cambridge Bears. Very successful program all around. One of the best well-rounded athletic departments in the state. By the way, that Cambridge wide receiver duo, we talked about Aaron Gregory and the other young man, the duo down at Douglas County. Is it Darren Harris? Then you got at Cambridge, and you don't hear much about these guys, but you've got Craig Dandridge. He's the UGA commit, and Hudson Kakaria. He's the other wide receiver for Cambridge. But both these guys, I mean, their receiving yards is unbelievable combined. They're both going to be playing Division I next year. So look out for that one. Cambridge at Central Carroll. I know that's like one of those games. Who? Well, do your homework. You know your high school football. Those are 2 really solid teams. Check this out. The potential semifinal matchup in 4A. Very possible. You could see Benedictine and North Oconee going at it. Are you kidding me? How about that? North Oconee looking to defend their state title. Benedictine, who's won like 6 state championships in the last decade, hadn't won it though since 2022. Danny Britt has done a phenomenal job over at Savannah. Man, Benedictine, North Oconee. By the way, that's not a guaranteed game, but you want to talk about one not to miss. All right. Class A Division II, potential third round matchup, quarterfinal, Irwin at Manchester. And here's another one. Check this out, and we'll leave on this one. We'll end with a bang. Brooks County and Bowden in the semifinals. That's a very real possibility. Brooks County, Bowden, of course, a rematch of the state championship. But if it happens this year, it'll come in the semifinals. All right, guys. I want to thank everybody for being with me today. Man, we went an hour and a half strong. Soldiered through it. You guys stayed with me today. I really appreciate it. So much to talk about. High school football. Matthew Park tells me we got a Buc-ee's too, brother. Jose Padilla says, come on, Phil, you got to stop. My sinuses are tingling just thinking football. All right, guys, I will let everybody off the hook. My man Flint, I know it's probably like, what are you doing? We're going to put an end to it there. I want to thank everybody for checking out the show today. I want to thank Dr. Kevin Collins, one of our sponsors of the Houston Clinic, and Doyer and the guys at Pepsi Cola Valdosta, sponsors of the show. I want to thank everybody for checking out the show today. Had a great turnout, great questions. If I missed you, please don't be offended. I try to catch everybody in between the content delivery of the show. So if I missed you, I'm sorry. Not intentional. Love you. Thanks so much for checking out the show. We'll be back next week. Same time, same bat channel. In the meantime, guys, share and like the show, as well as all of our stories that we have at ITG Next Georgia. Proud to bring you all this great content on all of our platforms. Check it out, like it.